Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back here with our intuitive, what could I call her? She's just very creative and she's got a lot to offer from VitaJuwel, her own spiritual encounters and what she can do for you with VitaJuwel and just her own sense of her sixth sense. And she's here to help us and to guide us. And we've had some great conversations in the past. And I know she's very empathetic and she really is an empath. Welcome back to the show today, Jacqueline. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me, Jill.
Great. So please, I'll let you do the introduction because you could probably do it better.
Okay. I'm the Canadian distributor for a line of crystal water bottles called VitaJuwel, and I manufacture my own sprays and crystal essences under the brand Aurum.
Perfect.
Which is, Latin for gold. So if you want to include a little more gold in your life, maybe it's some Aurum products that you need.
Oh, wonderful. And the website where we can find out more information about VitaJuwel and you?
www.vitajuwel.ca.
Great. Well, do you want to talk about some of the products? Or I know sometimes we talk about other things in your life, which all relate to your energy and healing modalities. So where did you want to start?
Well, I'm as North Americans like to say, we like to talk about where we're from and our past and our history. My husband, who's from Switzerland, he laughs at me and jokes around that really doesn't matter because we're just Canadian or North American.
Of course. Yep. Worldwide though.
Yes. But I know that today for anyone who has Irish background in them is sort of a important or special day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to those. Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I do have Irish heritage in my line, and St. Patrick's Day has always been sort of a magical and really important, special day for me. You know, even when I was in kindergarten, I don't know if our teacher used to sprinkle probably Jello, like lime Jello around the classroom when we went out for recess, and we'd come in and there'd be leprechaun dust everywhere.
Uh-huh.
And my mom would put green food coloring in our chicken noodle soup when we came home for lunch in the afternoon. And I think things that probably lots of kids in North America grow up with. But as I've developed my spirituality, I've really fallen in love with Ireland and some of the magic and history and folklore or fairy tales that go with it. So I have a remedy and it's called Shamrock Shires. And it was based sort of on luck and good things coming your way and abundance, but also on religious strife and the immigration sort of that the Irish people went through and that, lots of people all over the world have gone through. Mm-hmm. And things about just working really hard and trying and giving it all you've got and kind of coming to the end of your rope. And then what do you do at that point? So I wanted to talk about that. And one of the things that, is sort of interesting to me too, is the fact of what's going on with Ukraine. And I heard that, so Ireland normally puts out a video sort of advertising, come to Ireland on this day, and it's an Ireland tourism video. And they have now switched that up for the day to talk about the Ukraine. And instead of encouraging all of the buildings to have, the green lights that they typically would do for St. Patrick's Day, they're encouraging and asking people to do green and yellow lights instead.
Wow.
Like green and gold, or blue and gold, sorry. Yeah. So do you have any traditions or things that you do on St. Patrick's Day?
Okay. I have Irish heritage. And last night, my boys started asking me, isn't the leprechaun coming tomorrow? And I'm like, I text my sister. I said, my mom, when she was alive, she would make the corned beef and cabbage. She would make that, but she's passed and I don't cook like that. So my sister gave me some ideas. Don't laugh, but I had nothing in a sense, but I made something. I put 2 pots of quarters leading out of the bedroom into the bathroom. So it looked like the leprechaun left them something. And then I took food dye and I put it in the toilet and I said, oh, look, the leprechaun left you money and he used the bathroom. And then my son has the Irish jig today at his class. He's 5, but so I don't really have any set traditions. And I forgot as a mom, I'm like, they need to think that it's real. And so, yeah. And they wore green.
Love it. Yep. Yeah. So Sorry, that's so cute and adorable. If I was a kid, yeah, in your house, I would have been totally excited to wake up to that.
Yeah, they jumped out of bed. I wish I could do that every day. They were like,
So with the Shamrock Shires blend, this was a blend that I started a while back. And originally when I designed it, I heard in my head, this is called up. And I was trying to think about the word up and what up meant. And uplifting, just raising your spirits, encouraging more joy and positivity, and to bring people from a place of, where you're sort of down and restore some sense of livelihood and balance and happiness and wealth into your life. And so in this blend, we have magnesite, which it's a white stone in here. And magnesite has magnesium. And lots of people that are having problems sleeping or restless legs or just totally completely exhausted and burnt out, magnesium depletion is one of the minerals in our body that we can regenerate for that. Gold, it has gold flakes. So my maiden name was Golding. And so I actually did have gold in my name, but I couldn't wear gold. I couldn't be around gold. I couldn't ingest gold. I had real problems with gold. And with that was sort of an ability to generate wealth and income and abundance in my life. Mm-hmm. And one of the first remedies that I ever took was gold, probably 20 years ago. And I broke it into hives all over my body.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was really, a little miffed. At first I was like, what on earth, did we get new detergent in the household? Had I washed the sheets with something? Because I took it and went to bed and woke up in the morning. I was covered with welts from head to toe. And then I called my mentor, Barb, and I said, I woke up with welts all over my body. The only thing that I think it could possibly be is this Orem remedy that I took last night. And she's like, yippee. She goes, that's so wonderful. She goes, I knew you'd have a huge reaction from it. And then she went on to explain that sometimes the areas that are most out of balance in our life will take the biggest reaction to switch them around. And often that reaction will be something that we don't see as very good. And so I took this Orem remedy, and since then, lots of things started changing in my life. And so that's in the remedy. And I think anyone who has problems with abundance, and this is sort of going back to Buddhism, I guess, a little bit. I don't know if, many people know out there that Buddha was a priest, or sorry, a king, a prince. Okay. And so he had a kingdom. And I do consider to practice lots of Buddhist traditions. I don't have, a spiritual background with a lot of the teachings of Buddhism. So for the people that really are, please understand if, I get some of these details wrong. But from my understanding, Buddha had this kingdom and he had all of these resources and all this wealth. And what he did is he felt bad and he felt guilty about having so much. And so he renounced his throne and he went out into the world and he said, I'm going to live like the rest of the people. And, I don't need all this wealth and prestige and resources. And so some time went by and he lost his health and he lost, he didn't have a place to live and he didn't have a place to sleep and he didn't have any resources and he was basically dead. And he fell asleep under this tree and sort of just prayed and asked what he was supposed to do. And the message or the learning and teaching that he got from it is that as a prince, he had all of the resources and wealth in the world to do a whole bunch of great things for people. And by renouncing his throne, he no longer, had the means to even take care of himself, much less the people, under his care and protection that were important to him. So I think one of the core fundamental things about Buddhism is that you develop your skills and your gifts, and then it is okay to utilize the resources that you need for the specific tasks that you are undertaking, so that you have what you need to give back to the world. And so that's one of the main things from Buddhism that sort of has affected my life since then. And it's the realization that it's okay to have the things that we need in our own life to accomplish the things that we're supposed to do while we're here on earth. And gold can help you do that.
Nice.
So with this blend, and we talked a lot about the Ukrainian situation and what's going on over there, and also, with Russia and how difficult that must be for them. And when I was working on this remedy, I wondered if we really needed a new remedy, or if there was enough themes contained in some of my existing remedies that we didn't need to go there. And so in my Shamrock Shires remedy, this remedy here, we have things like immigration, and we have leaving it all behind, and we have, poverty, and we have religious persecution. So those are some of the themes in this one. In my Forgotten's Evenings remedy, that's about forgiveness. And we have things like World War II in there and World War I. And we have the Holodomor, which is the mass cannibalism that happened in the Ukraine in the early 1900s or late 1800s, when Russia invaded and there wasn't enough money for food. And people were forced to resort to cannibalism of their family members in order to survive the winter. So, that's already built into a remedy. And then we have my Bravest Noct remedy, which is about betrayal, and when people do stuff that really hurts you and how you overcome that. So those are all remedies that deal with, different themes sort of contained within. But my one friend, she said to me, she goes, what the Ukraine needs right now is it needs happiness and positivity and love, and people just thinking really, really good thoughts about it. So that sort of fits in with the Shamrock Shires remedy, and why I wanted to share that with you today.
Yeah, the only thing I've tasted with gold was Goldschlager back in the day. Do you remember that drink? It's an
Yes.
alcoholic beverage, but it was so gross and disgusting, and people thought it was cool to eat chips of gold. That's not a good taste. I don't know what that did. That wouldn't do anything good for me.
And are you adverse to cinnamon, or do you think?
No, I like cinnamon. I do like cinnamon, but I just that alcohol, I don't even know if it's rum, vodka, whatever it was, whiskey. I don't know. I just don't like hard alcohol. But I did try, thinking it was cool to have gold in me.
Yes. And we acquired a bottle of Goldschlager as well. And we don't really drink that much. And I didn't know what it was. And I mean, it sat unopened for maybe a decade in our house. And we went to my sister's sometime in the winter time, and they had it, and they said, I don't know if it was hot chocolate or, some wintry beverage. And they asked if we wanted some in there. And I looked at her and I said, well, I don't even know what it is, but we have this bottle that has been kicking around our house forever. And so that again was years ago. And then when I started looking at this remedy, I'm like, does Goldschlager actually have real gold flakes in it? And sure enough, it does. So I have a new love for Goldschlager.
How ironic.
But it's very interesting that you talked about the taste, because VitaJuwel made a bottle called Golden Moments, and it had gold flakes in it. And that was the first VitaJuwel water bottle that I had. And for months when I started selling VitaJuwel, I didn't have a VitaJuwel water bottle of my own. And my sister finally one day, she's like, Jacqueline, she's like, you sell this, you need this. Like, what are you doing? And I said, well, the one that I get that I need is $400 and some. And I just can't really, justify spending the money on it. And I mean, kind of ridiculous, but even though it's my own products, I made everyone, including myself and my husband, pay full price for all the products in my own store for the first couple of years. These things we do. So finally I got the Golden Moments water bottle, and I went to drink from it, and it tasted like mold. And I was like, oh, wow. And the thing that I noticed is my first sip would taste like mold. And then if I went a couple hours and had some in the afternoon, the mold would be even stronger. And so I drank it this way for a while, and it was just horrible. And then finally I got to the point where I would leave it on my desk, and I would just pour it into a glass, and it would have a slightly moldy taste, but not as moldy as when I was just drinking from it. And then, as time went on, I intuitively, I'm like, how long will this taste like mold for? And I got 4 months. So I said, okay, I'll commit to drinking, moldy water for 4 months. And this woman who is a medical medium came into my store one day, and I gave her a sip, and she looks at me and she goes, has anyone ever told you that when you drink from these remedies, it actually interacts with your saliva, and the next time you drink from the remedy, you're drinking a new remedy that's like more potent for your body?
No.
And I was like, well, that makes sense. And that's very interesting, because I had this gold water bottle that tasted like mold. And the more I drank from it, the stronger the mold was. And I said, conversely, and one of the stones in there was halite, which is salt that was with the gold. And then I got a halite water bottle after the gold, and it was just pure halite.
Okay.
And that one tasted like peppermint. And
Wow.
every time I drank from it, it was just this pure, fresh, it tasted like I had taken mint leaves and, just filled a bottle with these mint leaves. But the thing that was really interesting about that was somehow it got left, I don't know, in a car or my office or someplace for over a month. And I hadn't drank, I drank from it, but I hadn't washed it. And the water that I drank from a month previous was still in there. And I found it and I took off the lid and I'm like, do I dare? And I went and I kind of sniffed it at first and it smelled minty. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So then I drank it and it actually tasted like pure mint still. So, here I have my gold water bottle that hours later is so moldy, you can hardly get it down. And here I have just the pure halite that has been left for a month after drinking out of it and is still pure, fresh, minty taste.
Wow.
So, fast forward another year and I'm in this woman's store and she says to me, she goes, do you ever have people tell you that some of your water bottles taste like mold? And I said, well, that's very interesting because I had one that tasted like mold to me. And she said, well, I had this woman who was drinking from the gold one and it tasted like mold to her. And intuitively, I got this message that her body had lots of mold and the gold was actually pulling the mold out of her body. And at some point when, this process was done, it wouldn't taste like mold anymore. And my jaw just kind of dropped and I was like, well, I can totally believe that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What a tangent we went on, but this is great. I mean, St. Patty's Day with oh my gosh. Wow.
So, another thing with gold, I used to be cold all of the time. Even in the summertime, I would sit with the heater under my desk turned on. And after drinking gold water for a few weeks, the heater was gone and I've never used a heater in that way since. So it really helped balance and raise my body temperature. And just so many different things I noticed from drinking the gold water. And I said to myself, if I break this water bottle every single month, I would rebuy it because of the value that it's added to my life and the things that it's done for me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And for those that don't know about the VitaJuwel bottle, you buy the bottle, right?
Yeah.
And then you buy different crystals.
There's two different ways. One of them has the actual pod in it. So it comes with the crystals.
Oh, okay.
And then we have an in-you bottle and that one you can actually unscrew and put your own crystals into.
And different crystals help people in different ways.
Yes. So the orange calcite that's in this bottle, they consider that a stone of the sun and say that it really helps with seasonal affective disorder. So anyone who suffers from the winter blahs and, just needs that pick me up. But also, because I've dealt a lot with depression and those sort of issues. And part of the thing is that if your body's not getting the right nutrients and is not digesting your food properly, then your body doesn't have what it needs. So there's lots of different, well, maybe even most or all conditions. I would say that at this point in my life, I can trace to different vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And there's times when your body, you can even be eating perfectly healthy, but if your colon isn't working properly or the digestive enzymes in your gut are not breaking down the food, or you don't have the probiotics, to absorb the nutrients, you can essentially be eating a wonderfully healthy diet and not getting any of the nutrition that your body requires.
Got it. Thank you for sharing.
We also have what's sort of called readily accessible reserves in our body and deep well reserves.
What's that?
So the readily accessible is like your body needs, your zinc, your magnesium, your calcium, and it's sort of like sitting there on the shelf ready for your body to work with. Whereas the deep well reserves are the minerals contained in your organs, in your muscles, and in your bones. And when your body doesn't have enough of your readily accessible reserves, it goes to your deep well reserves and pulls the nutrition out of your organs and systems that it really shouldn't be pulling from. So you can think that you're doing okay, but so osteoporosis later in life is not necessarily you just not getting enough, but it's a continued state where you're not getting enough. And so your body's continually taking it out of your bones where it shouldn't be accessing, nutrition from. And so when a person is trying to rebuild their health after these periods of, convalescence or poor diet, you can't just expect to replace. You might feel better after a few weeks or a few months, but if you've gone and depleted your resources within your internal bodily systems, you need to be looking to replace that as well.
Got it. Thank you. And by the way, it's VitaJuwel.ca, correct? VitaJuwel.
JUW, German spelling.
Thank you. See, I forget.
Yes.
Awesome. We still have 10 minutes left. What else do you want to share with everyone?
I need to introduce you to the Shire from our Shamrock Shire.
Okay.
So this is my Shire. And a Shire is a heavy horse, and it's from the British Isles, and it was actually considered a British war horse. And so, but the thing with them, and they've further gone on to, just a second. So in the movie Braveheart, Shires were actually the horses used in the movie to film the movie Braveheart. And a Shire is a very docile animal, but it's a workhorse. And when you start tapping into animals and animal spirit energy, the one thing that I think we think because we're able to access something that we should access it and we have the right to access it. And the things that I know from my work with animals is that first we need to give. We need to understand where someone is coming from, and we need to give back to that. And with horses, when you look at what horses have done for humanity over, the course of thousands of years or millennia, we have taken and taken and taken from horses. And, they've been our modes of transportation. They've got our food off the field. They've gone to war for us. They've done basically everything. And what have we given back to horses, or how much do we appreciate or value their contribution to human society and all of the things that we take for granted today? And the reason that, the Shire wanted to be in this remedy and Shire energy is, and the word Shire, I always kind of talk about a Shire for hire, because my husband said to me one morning, I said, I feel like this remedy is not complete. It just needs something else. And my husband looks at me and he says, well, it needs to go out into the field. I looked at him, I said, out into the field? Like, am I supposed to
let it go? Okay.
And so he goes, well, it needs to go into the field. So I went and I did this meditation, and this Shire came to me, this war horse, and he was all decked out in his tack and, his, like all of his stuff. And he was bloody and he was falling apart and he was exhausted. And it was just sort of the recognition of the service that he's done. And he's just like, I need a break. I've given you absolutely everything that I can, and I need a break. And I took all of his harness and tack off of him, and he was all sweaty and dirty. And he went out into the field and he lay down and he rolled around in it, and he went for a run. And I was like, oh my God, the remedy needs to go out in the field, because after you've worked this hard and after you've been through hell and back, you need a break, and you deserve a break, and you can spend all of the days in the pasture and just enjoy the fruits of your labor. And so this is what was missing from the remedy. Are you familiar with the coffin chips?
No, not at all.
So the coffin chips during the potato famine is how the Irish people came to North America. And they were called coffin ships. And I don't have my details on me, but let's say, for example, that the ship could normally have 100 people on it. They came across with 300 people. Wow. And people had to sell absolutely everything they had to afford passage on this ship. And it might have been a two-week journey. And the only rations people aboard the ship got was 2 cups of water per day. So any food that you needed to sustain you for the 2 weeks, you had to bring on board yourself, which was also very, very difficult, given that you would come from, the potato famine, you had nothing, you'd sold absolutely everything you had to get to North America. And many people didn't have this food for the passage. And then they got to North America, and that was a whole nother story. So many people, I forget, it was 25 or 30% of the people who boarded the ships never made it to North America. They died along the way. And so It has the coffin chips and the fact that things are so difficult that you'll go to any means to try and make them better. But when you get to that place afterwards, you're often so exhausted and so dejected and so worn out that you have absolutely nothing left. So it's saying that we recognize all the hardships you've gone through, and life is going to get better and it's going to get easier, and you have luck, and you have there's resources and there's time off and that kind of stuff. So that's, some other themes that are built into this remedy.
Wow. And it's funny because it's not until I met with you, started talking to you, should I say, that I didn't even know this existed. Like I know energy healing, I've heard of holistic, I've never heard of, using jewels in a sense, and minerals and halcite. Was it halcite you just mentioned?
Calcite, yeah.
Calcite, and all these different things that can really help affect your body. And just curious, got a question. I know we talked a lot about Ukraine last time, and the energy that you're sending over there. And I know that the woman in the shop that you met and who's taking donations and helping. Is there anything as a whole, as society, can we be doing, prayers? I know you send energy. Not everybody knows how to do that. Is there something that, we could all do that would work in a sense, that's spiritual, that's connects us?
Yeah. And first, I will say that people did call in and make donations to this woman, and she told me that. So thank you, everybody who reached out in that way. So the thing about energy and how it works, and this was sort of a download that I got, is that your thoughts have the power to affect, like, the energy field that you give off. Anybody who studies frequency in terms of physics, that resonant. So when something has a frequency and it goes like this, and you introduce a new frequency, the wavelengths will match, and you can actually affect, like if you pluck two, harp strings in a room, or two piano keys, they will tune to each other.
Okay.
And so that's the thing with frequency, is that what we think and what we feel, we give off into the people and the surrounding, around us, whether we know we do or not. And people who have tapped into this gift and who have managed this gift and are developing it have the power to give off like a much greater influence. So they say Mother Teresa, and I forget if it was a city block or 12 city blocks or a mile, is how far her energy field would radiate and how many people that she could affect, and that were uplifted just by being in her presence. And so if you're at home and you are thinking, if you're sending prayers and you're sending love and you are teaching your kids about this, and you're thinking, how am I doing this in my own life that I can do it different? It's like a chain reaction that goes through the world. And there's this thing with monkeys, these studies that they did, and I think it's called the 100 monkey syndrome. And what it is they took monkeys and they noticed that, let's say all monkeys were eating bananas whole, and there wasn't a monkey in the whole world that was peeling bananas. And so these scientists went in and they actually taught the monkeys how to peel the bananas. And what happened is when they had taught 100 monkeys, all of a sudden, monkeys in different qualities, and then monkeys around the world, they started having these documented evidences of monkeys peeling the bananas.
Wow.
And so we call it this grid of consciousness that goes around the earth. And it's this invisible energetic network that surrounds everything. And every time that you think something or you do something, you put these thoughts and these feelings into the world and the energy in the atmosphere. And when enough people think and feel that, it catches on, and there's actual physical, changes and chain reactions and events.
Beautiful.
So know that, everything that you are doing on your own, and it's important for helpful. Yes. And every person to tap into the ways that they should be doing it, and know that that's creating the chain reactions in the right way.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, and remind us again how we can reach out to you, please.
VitaJuwel.ca, VitaJuwel.ca.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Have a great day. And to all of our listeners, the same. Stay tuned, where the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.